Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Namaste Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarani Om Agyanatamirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksu Samilatan Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kalamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam Vanchakalpa Trubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitram Pabhinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Unfortunately, our Maharaj is, he was a bit ill yesterday. Quite amazingly that he gave his class despite having a difficult day, as he mentioned, and he requested that I speak the early class so he could get a little rest. So here I am. Before we begin this class, which is this VIHE class, I didn't mean to delete that. This Act 4, the great sages arrive, for they desire the darshan of Krishna and Balaram. This is the beginning of the Bhagavatam 10th canto, chapter 84, which is the final chapter in this sequence of chapters at Kurukshetra. But before we begin this chapter, which is a very interesting chapter, as all the chapters are interesting, let's just see where we are in the dance of rasas. So there were the kings, a little slower please, and then after the kings, because they wanted something from Krishna. And then there was the Yadus who knew he was the Supreme Lord. Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But they had such an intimate, affectionate relationship with him that they could eat with him, sleep with him, and joke with him. More intimate. And then when the residents of Vrindavan arrived, there was Rohini, who had her relationship with Braj because she had been there. So her dealing with Mother Yashoda was somewhat different than Devaki's, who's the next one. Of course, even though Devaki was sarcastic in her words to Mother Yashoda, but still there was complete love and affection there. But when it comes to Krishna and wanting to have one's satisfying exchanges with Krishna, there can be different types of competitions and rivalries and envies. This is what Braj is really like, just to increase the rasa, just to increase the taste of relationship with Krishna. But it's based on the transcendental platform, so there's no material mundane envy there, but somehow or another in the spiritual world, all the emotions exist, but there is no contamination of the material modes of nature, and there is no wishing of harm to the person. So there's Devaki, and then Yashoda Devi, who in such an amazing way just exhibited her love for Krishna, didn't even notice that anyone was talking to her, what to speak of sarcastically criticizing her. And then Uddhava, in the second chapter, he had also been to Braj. So these were the only two Yadavas, Rohini Devi and Uddhav, who had been to Braja, who knew the intimacy, the love that the Brajbasis had to Krishna, and knew that love surpassed their love. Then there was the gopis, who only wanted to see Krishna in Sri Vrindavana Dham. And yesterday we heard about the Rath Yatra, where the heart of Mahaprabhu was revealed, and that was the mood, the heart of Srimati Radharani, her great love for Krishna, but it had to be in Sri Vrindavana Dham, because there Krishna could be his real self, just like there's a pastime, not a pastime, but the way that helps me understand Krishna and Braj is that if there's a king, and the king is surrounded, maybe even his wife is sitting next to him, and the gods are on this side and the gods are on that side, and if you see in the red fort, the Dabar, the chamber where the king greets everyone, holds court, it's high, so when you walk in, you're looking upward like this, and you don't take selfies there, you don't wear your jeans, you don't wear your casual clothes. It's formal, because you're confronting the power you're confronting power. And when there's the confrontation with power, you're in the presence of power, there's always some reverence and fear. So then, at some point, the king stands up, and the queen stands up, and the guards accompany the king to the door. And then, do you think the king opens the door himself? Not possible. The guards or some special assigned, they open up the door. He walks out, and everyone goes, and he walks out, and the king also goes, and he walks into his own private quarters, takes off his crown, he plays with his children, he jokes with his wife. He's still the king, but he can be himself completely. He can relax, he can do so many things that he can't do in the courtroom. He can't joke with his wife, he can't do this, he can't do that. Or if he does make a joke, you can be sure that everyone laughs. And there's, oh, Maharaj, that was such a wonderful joke, thank you so much. So Krishna, in his own personal house, was just relaxing and being himself. He has all the powers that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Bhagawan, has. He still has it there. He can say, off with his head from the private quarters, just as he can say it from the Dabar. But he's more at home. Now, what do you think is the qualification for being allowed entrance into the king's home? It's not like everyone can just walk in there like you can walk in to the Dabar. But what's the qualification? What do you think? Raise your hand. Yes. Yeah, because you have to be trustworthy to be allowed into the quarters. And who can be more trustworthy than someone who completely loves you? And if someone who's not trustworthy, who doesn't love you, they want something for themselves. And they'll exploit the position of being in there. They'll either steal your silverware, there was one ex-butler, servant of the Queen of England, and later on he wrote books about what it was like there, and he taught people how to deal with royalty. So he exploited it, and he told the secrets of what happens behind there that no one's supposed to know. Because especially when dealing with Krishna, if you're not qualified, you'll think he's an ordinary person because he's herding the cows. He doesn't even wear shoes. He's such a village boy. He eats, he does this, he does that. But he's not an ordinary person. The king in his private quarters still has his unlimited powers, his powers there. So the gopis were the residents of those private quarters, as was Mother Yashoda. And Rohini and Uddhava had visited them. So he knew what Krishna is in his relaxed mood, just at home. And then, in the beginning of the next chapter, was Yudhisthira Maharaj, who had an intimate relationship with Krishna, not as intimate as the Yadavas. He knew Krishna was the Supreme Lord, but Krishna lived in their house, considered himself the servant of the Pandavas, and they loved him so much. And then with the queens, Draupadi was a friend of Krishna. She had a more intimate relationship with Krishna in friendship than the Pandavas, her husband. He was called Krishna. And then there was Rukmini, Jamavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda, and Bhadra and Lakshmana. Now, which of Krishna's, they had one type of relationship that was complete. I just want to serve Krishna. I want to wash his feet. I want to sweep his palace. But I am his maidservant. And somehow he considers me his queen. And which of the 8 principal queens is missing? There, raise your hand. Satyabhama. She had a more friendly, unequal relationship with Krishna. And then there was Rohini, not the other Rohini, but the Queen Rohini and the other 16,100 queens who weren't of the 8 kind, but they, different from the 8 original queens, who were satisfied with being queens and had no relationship and didn't want any relationship with Braja. They were attracted to Braja, these queens. So that's where we're up to. And the next one that we shall hear is Narada Muni and many other, what's that word? What kind of sages? Muni sages. Okay. That's what we're going to hear about today. And still we could, so that's 13, but still, in fact, Narada Muni had a different relationship with Krishna than many of those sages, because the sages were in different categories. Some were devotees, some were impersonalists who wanted to merge, some were Paramatma yogis, etc. So there's so many divisions of relationships with Krishna. So the first verse of the 84th and final chapter of the Kurukshetra pastimes, first verse, that Sukadev Goswami said, Prita, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, the wives of the other queens, and the Lord's cowherd girlfriends were all amazed to hear of the queen's deep love for Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the soul of all beings. And hearing of the queen's love, their eyes filled with tears. Interestingly, our acharyas explained that all these that are named were not there at the same time, because first of all, Gandhari and Kunti, who is Prita, they had they were senior, and Draupadi couldn't have spoken, and the queens couldn't have spoken such a casual way, so they weren't there at the time, but they heard secondhand or third hand, and still, just hearing about Krishna, they were moved to tears. Just by hearing about Krishna and his different relationships, they were moved to tears just by hearing. How powerful is hearing about Krishna? Because they had the relationship with Krishna. So hearing of his pastimes, and even the gopis, who had no desire to be like the queens, they were the topmost of devotees. Still, because they loved to hear about Krishna, and still because even though the queens and the gopis had some rivalry on the spiritual platform, still, because the queen's relationship with Krishna had something like their relationship with Krishna, still, when they heard about these pastimes from a distance because, after all, this was a discussion amongst royalty, and they were just simple cowherd village people. They couldn't have been in there. So they also heard secondhand, and still they were moved to tears. And Srila Jiva Goswami assures us that their prema for Krishna was hundreds of times more than anyone else's, the queens even. And the gopis were thus, in fact, Sanatana Goswami says, amazed at this. The gopis also understood, as there are many places in the 10th canto and the pastimes between the gopis and Krishna, they understood he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the queens understood he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But they had that understanding. But their love for Krishna, their madhurya bhav, just so completely covered their aishwarya bhav, the mood of him being the Supreme Lord. So like when the queen is sitting next to the king in the dabar on the royal throne, still she knows of him in private, so her relationship is not the same as anyone else's. The example is given that, I think it's by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that it's like when you have milk and you're boiling the milk, and perhaps in the village there may be some grass in the milk. So their consciousness of Krishna was like the boiling of the milk, and every once in a while the grass, which is knowledge of his opulence, would come to the surface, but as boiling milk it would go down again. So they knew, but it didn't dominate at all their consciousness. They had full knowledge, but their consciousness was dominated by the sweetness of Krishna. That's what dominated their consciousness, the sweetness of Krishna. The sweetness of Krishna's beauty, the sweetness of his dealings, the sweetness of his flute playing, the sweetness of his voice, and the sweetness of, just one more, of his pastimes. That's what dominated their consciousness, even though the grass of his opulence would sometimes come to the surface. And Krishna's particular form and activities in Braja was attracting all hearts. And therefore, he attracts everyone. Krishna, the all-attractive. And he is dearest to everyone. So the women, in the second verse, it describes how the women were talking amongst themselves and the men were talking amongst themselves. And at the same time, some sages arrived, many sages. And they had come to Kurukshetra for their own reasons, but knowing that Krishna was in Kurukshetra, they wanted to see him and Balaram. This was their desire. They were sages. They didn't come, they wanted the piety perhaps, but they wanted to see Krishna and Balaram. And they arrived with that special goal. We want to see Krishna and Balaram. They knew his position. Maybe on different levels they knew his position. The Brahmavadis knew that he was the supreme Brahman. The yogis knew that he was the super soul. And the devotees, the bhaktas, knew that he was Bhagavan. Different realizations, but they knew that he was the transcendental person, the transcendental Lord. And they wanted to see him. So, soon as everyone saw the sages approaching, and there were many, many, many sages, and everyone who was in all the assemblies, they immediately stood up out of respect. And they came forward and greeted the sages, and they brought them forward. And but especially Krishna and Balaram, And the other kings and leaders, they worshiped the sages. The Supreme Lord worshiped the sages. And they washed their feet, they gave them drinking water, flower garlands, they offered them incense, they put chandan, sandalwood paste on them. And after they were seated, Krishna, who was completely transcendental and the goal of the sages, he began to speak. And everyone there was wrapped in attention. What will Krishna say to these sages? And what did he say? Now our lives, seeing you, are completely successful. Our qualification isn't to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally, but rather it is to go to the temple and see the Lord, same Lord, but in a deity form. But how fortunate we are that now we can see you in person. And we can bow down to you in person. And we can serve you in person. And great sages, yogis, they only have the opportunity to either meditate on you in their hearts or see you in the form of the deity. They don't have the opportunity to see you personally right before them. And yet we, as royalty, which means householders who are attached to wealth and power, somehow or another, Jiva Goswami says, by mercy alone, we are able to be in your personal presence. Everyone just close your eyes for a moment and put yourself in the presence of your favorite deity. And you could offer, what will you do when you're in the presence of your deity and you could do whatever you like? Well, do it. Close your eyes. Krishna was right before them. This also occurs by mercy alone. Srila Prabhupada said one time that I have created your piety that allows you to become devotees. So Krishna began to speak. And what he's going to say bewilders the sages. They are sages. They are learned, they are austere, they have spiritual desires on their own levels. They are sages. But Krishna's word is going to bewilder them, make their minds spin. He says, and I have to, because there's many philosophical points in this chapter, so I'll do some summarizing of them. They say that when you go to a holy place, basically, when you go to a holy place and take a bath, and maybe even make deities out of earth, or you have deities made out of stone, these purify one. But it's after a long time they purify you. But saintly sages, they purify one immediately upon being seen. That's what Krishna says. And why is that? It's because they manifest Krishna's presence. Because, and why do they do that? Maharaj Yudhisthira spoke to Vidura when he had come from pilgrimage. Bhavad vida bhagavata tirtha bhuti swayam vibhu tirtha korvanti tirtani swantastena gadavrita. Because in their hearts, they have captured Krishna. They keep Krishna always in their hearts, in their minds. They're thinking about Krishna. So therefore, when they travel from one place to the next, they are walking places of pilgrimage because of their great devotion, because where they are, Krishna is in their hearts, and they're broadcasting Krishna. So the translation of this verse in Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, my Lord, this is Yudhisthira speaking to Vidur. Devotees like your good self are actually, truly places of pilgrimage. You are holy places personified because you carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart. You turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Srila Prabhupada's purport, we'll read a little bit of it, that explains the principle. The personality of Godhead is omnipresent. What does omnipresent mean? Oh, I forgot to say raise your hand. Thank you, you raised your hand. He's present everywhere. How? By his potencies, many, many potencies. There is nothing. This is what Krishna and Uddhava were explaining to the gopis, and they said, we don't want to hear that Krishna is present everywhere by his potencies, and therefore there's no question of separation. But this is what a place of pilgrimage, where Krishna is present in the form of the devotees. Just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space, similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his pure, unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just like electricity is manifested in an electric bulb. A pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. And of course, we saw this with Srila Prabhupada. And when you entered the bubble of his presence, he would say, is everything all right? And you may have had 10,000 problems. And generally speaking, in his presence, you would feel, yes, Prabhupada, everything's all right. But one time, in Prabhupada's presence, my mind was still so disturbed. And I asked Prabhupada, I didn't ask him directly about him, because I asked about a principle. I said, how come even in the presence of a pure devotee, one could still be in Maya or be disturbed? And he replied in a very simple way, because the power of Maya is very strong. So that's not the fault of the devotee or the Lord. It's Maya. If we take shelter of Maya, that's our choice, or that's what we're forced into. And as soon as we understand we've taken shelter of Maya, the illusory energy, we pray to Krishna to help us. So, a pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord, and the Lord in everything. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human being. What pollutes the consciousness of a human being? This ahankara, and seeing everything as an object of my enjoyment, even people. You are meant for me. Your existence is meant for my pleasure. You're an object. We even see well, not we, but just imagine if, don't imagine it. But when people see you, just as an object to squeeze something, that's called, the people who like that are called the four-letter word known as BOSS. And as soon as you're no use to them, the boss, corporate life, go somewhere else. And they'll keep you, pay you, smile at you when you fulfill their desires. We objectify everything in the material world. And if anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotee residing in such holy place, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in practical life. Find them, take lessons, and apply, and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back home, back to Godhead. So Krishna is speaking about sages and glorifying them. Our lives is successful because yoga masters like you, very difficult to obtain. And we have attained it just by mercy because we're not austere, we are royalty. And we're so attached to our material wealth just by your mercy. Saintly persons purify immediately, can purify immediately, can purify if we associate with them properly. And that association, that kind of purity, cannot be compared to anything else. Not having the presence of the demigods, etc., because wise sages destroy one's sins. When respectfully served, even for a few moments. Other processes, they purify, but they cannot remove sins fully. They cannot fully remove the false ego. They cannot inspire one to surrender, give oneself sadhanagata with the Supreme Lord. But the sages who are like that, therefore, Ataeva Shanta, Krishna Bhakta, Nishkama Ataeva Shanta, because they are fully confident that they're living with Krishna and Krishna's protection. And they have love for him, and he has love for them. And then, a very famous verse, Krishna says it, Yasyatma buddhi kunapetu yatuke swadi kalat tradishu at bomya ijadi yatirta buddhi shalale nikarchi janeshu abigeshu sa eva gokara. That if one goes to a place of pilgrimage and just to take bath and then thinks his pilgrimage is successful, they are like what? Gokara. Kara means donkey, yes. And go means cows. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that envy, disrespect, and contempt of the faults of others, oh, this is horrible. Contempt of the faults of others can be destroyed by serving the great devotees. That means arrogance, born of false ego, by serving. Because those great devotees see the soul and the conditioned nature, bodily, mentally. It's just the conditioning, and they see the soul, pandita, samadarshana. So how kind they are reflects into the heart of those who serve them and hear from them. So Krishna has spoken. He's glorified the sages. And when the sages hear him, they're silent. They've come to see him because they know his position to some degree, differing degrees according to their processes and who they are. And then in his presence, they glorified him. And they speak. Let's see if there's one important point to know. And he glorifies them. When they come, they want to glorify him and be in his presence, and he expresses that your presence is so beneficial to the sages. So the Brahmins became silent after hearing Krishna speak. Their minds were bewildered. And they thought about it. When we hear something that we can't understand after, we can think about it. And they wondered, how is it that the Lord's behavior just seems to be just like how an ordinary person conditioned by the material modes would speak. Oh, Maharaj, you're very good. Please give me your blessings, etc., etc. Come to my house. So they thought about it, and then they concluded that, oh, we understand now. He's acting like this to instruct the people in general. So understanding, they smiled. And they spoke to him, who, in the words of the verse, he is the spiritual master of the universe. He is teaching the universe. So one point that perhaps many of them, the sages might not have understood, was that they are also in the universe, and that his instructions were also for them. Now, what instructions will be for the sages? That we will ask you in a few moments. So then they say, your power of illusion has even bewildered us. Again, I'm summarizing. And we know the truth. We're the exalted knowers of the truth, and we're leaders amongst the universal creators. How amazing is the behavior of the Supreme Lord. He covers himself with his human-like activities and pretends to be subject to superior control, the control of the Shastras, the control of the culture, the control of the modes of nature. He's pretending he's like that, and he needs the shelter and instructions of the sages. He's pretending they understand that, and they smile. How wonderful is that he's covering himself. Now listen to this. He's covering himself with his human-like activities. That means he's acting in a way when in certain times, that he's covering himself who he really is. The sages don't really understand Braja or Krishna's pastimes. His human-like activities, he's playing, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's stealing butter. But they don't understand this is who Krishna really is. He's doing just what he likes to do, even when he's herding the cows and walking around with no shoes and holding this kavala, this sweet rice mixed with yogurt in his left hand, and Brahma sees him, and he can't understand it either. How is he, uncultured left hand, holding everything? How is he? How could he be? He's Yajnabhuk, that he eats the offerings that are offered with complete purity. That's our Lord of sacrifices. And this is a village boy, Supreme Lord? Is this possible? So he became bewildered. And he's pretending to be subject to superior control. But then they say, his human-like activities, he's almighty. They are simply a pretense, a show, an act. But yes, they are, but they are not when he's in Braj. Because behind these human-like activities, they're thinking that he's the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Self, and he's created this entire creation. He maintains it, and at the end, he swallows it up into his existence, his Mahavishnu, his Govardhana Vishnu. And why has he come? The sages say, because he shows the pure mode of goodness. He protects the devotees, yada yada hidamasya glanir bhavati bharata, and he punishes the wicked. Thus, you have come to show the world the Varnashrama system. which means this is the actual subject of the Vedas. And you enjoy your pastimes to really establish Varnashrama in the world. Why Varnashrama? And Prabhupada also stressed that ultimately we need, not ultimately we need Prema Bhakti, but to bring us to that platform. This is also what Prahlad Maharaj asks Narada Muni, I think it's the 11th chapter, beginning of the 11th chapter in the 7th canto. How do you, Maharaj Yudhishthira asks, how do you attain a position like Prahlad's position, so pure? And Yudhishthira then continues to describe Varnashrama Dharma. It's the social structure that supports elevation of consciousness. The current social structure supports the degradation of consciousness, from atheism to sense gratification to the sporting events where you're everything is just enjoy, consume, and die. But don't think about that. And if you want to think about death, you can think about paying for your funeral in advance, so you don't burden anyone. Never mind that you're going to, who knows where you're going to go. So Varnashrama there's the workers, and everyone is respected, like one takes care of all the parts of the body, and the Vaishyas provide the food, the Kshatriyas maintain the order because they have the power. And the Brahmanas, though, as described when Rishabhdev Maharaj instructs his 100 sons, they have a special position. And their special position is that first Rishabhdev appoints Bharat as the king, and everyone should listen to Bharat, but that doesn't mean Bharat can do whatever he wants. Bharat, he describes, should listen to the Brahmanas, and the best amongst the Brahmanas are the Vaishnavas. And it doesn't mean that the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas can do whatever they want. They have the responsibility to study Shastra. So someone asks them a question, they're not going to tell them, answer the question from whatever they think and what they think is a good idea today, but rather they're going to have assimilated Shastra, and therefore, knowing the entirety of Shastra, they can instruct them based on Shastra. And did Shastra just say whatever it wants? No, Shastra is the words of Krishna. And the intent, it gives forth the intent of Krishna. So it's a way of connecting with Krishna through the Shastra, through the Brahmanas who have assimilated it. And they can give direction to society and maintain the life's actual purpose, that everyone can at least move forward, upward, and not in the opposite direction of what's good for them, what's healthy for them. So these divisions are so much required in the age of Kali, even though it seems like it's not very easy to put it into place. Because the Kshatriyas have to deal with wealth and power, tending towards passion. The Brahmins, as will become clearer, they have to cultivate sattva gun. That's their service. Kshatriya's service is to not be passive Brahmanas. They have a sword, Kshatriya, they have to protect, they have to hurt others. If anyone, we saw that in Maharaj Pariksit, someone dared to hurt a cow or a bull, he was ready to kill them immediately. They have to do that. And because they're dealing with passion, there's a tendency to be corrupted by passion, so they have to be subservient to the Brahmins, and the Kshatriyas, naturally loving profit, they have a tendency to cheat a bit, and they have the Kshatriyas there to make sure that they're being good boys. And so it's very scientific. So they continue to praise Krishna, speaking about his purpose, the sages do. The Vedas are your spotless heart. This is their vision, that the purpose of the Vedas and Krishna's spotless heart is to help human society. That's their vision, but it's not, even though they are sages, it's not the complete vision of what's in Krishna's heart. Do you know what's in Krishna's heart? Don't answer. But you should think in your mind, and then you'll know Krishna. What's in his heart? Are you thinking about that? It's wonderful, yes. And how did you learn? What do you teach in the Vedas? How to learn this? Austerity, study, and self-control. This is, he's saying, what the Brahmins are saying what the Vedas are teaching, so that they actually come to the conclusion, this is what a Brahmana is. And then, by studying Shastra in this way, by means of study and self-control and austerity, then the manifest and the unmanifest and the pure existence that's transcendental to everything, that will be known through this Vedic conclusion. In other words, ultimately, Vedescha Savara Hameva Vidyo, the Krishna will be known. So this is the purpose of Varnashrama, and the sages instruct in this way. Therefore, they say to Krishna, you honor the members of the Brahminical community because they are the agents by which people can realize you through the Vedas. And therefore you worship the Brahmanas to teach others this. But then they speak more. We are actually so fortunate. We are not bewildered. We see that you, the Supreme Lord, have come for your purposes. But we understand how fortunate we are to be in your presence. Even though you have disguised yourself, we can understand your greatness. But the kings, even the Vrishnis, who have such an intimate relationship with you, who will enjoy your intimate association, they know you as the soul of existence. They know you are the source of time and the supreme controller. You are covered by them, by the curtain of Maya. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments here that the Vrishnis may not see, they're so intimate with you, but do they really know who you are? When dealing with the residents of Vrindavan, he doesn't even, the sages don't mention that. That's out of their cowherd people, village people. They don't, their level of realization, even though they are sages, is not even on that level. So they're thinking that the Vrishnis, due to their dealings, the Yadavas, due to their dealings with you, and the proof is, they know you're the Supreme Lord, but do they really know you're the Supreme Lord? They're in the darbar, but they're treating you as sleeping, resting, eating, joking. So they are covered by the curtain of your Maya. Now we know that the curtain of Maya has lifted, and they see him by the mercy of Yoga Maya. They've taken shelter of the internal energy, and Krishna comes. He's come by his internal potency, and but they are saying that they don't actually know who you are. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this. The Vrishnis do not know you. This is the vision of the sages, who are the object of their intense affection. You're the super soul. You're the king on the darbar. So they couldn't really know you because they sit on the same seat or bed with you. And the kings, who are the first rasa we talked about, the kings who destroy them as time, they don't know you as the Lord. Why? because you are covered by the screen of Maya, a covering of their knowledge, of their realization of who you could be, who you are. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ends his comment by saying, it should be concluded, however, that it is ignorance, because they are in the center. The kings are in the center. They're thinking, the Lord is so wonderful who we're seeing because his presence causes the earth to be so wonderful, and the earth being wonderful means that we can satisfy all our desires. So they are the center. And therefore Vishwanath says they are actually covered by Maya, while the Vrishnis, the Yadavas, they go to Kurukshetra to take part in Krishna's pastimes. They love him. And Vishwanath says they are covered by Yoga Maya. They are connected to the Lord, not his illusory energy. And therefore, this is the standard for a devotee. And Srila Sanatana Goswami says the devotee, therefore, is unbewildered by Maya, which incites, which excites and incites the senses to material objects and forms for the purpose of their enjoyment. And why, Sanatana Goswami says, why do the devotees not be covered by Maya? Why are they not bewildered by Maya? He answers that question. Because they are absorbed in Shastra, either by hearing it or studying it from those who study it with austerity and sattva guna, etc. Because of their absorption in Shastra, that absorption in Shastra gives them the vision that Krishna has passed down, as in the frame of reference that we were hearing before, through the Varnashrama system. It awards vision of reality, free from the Maya that teaches us. The Maya traps us and convinces us through the mind, the contaminated mind. It teaches us that everything, every person, every place, every object is meant for me and my pleasure. And if I see others have things that I want, I become jealous or envious or murderous even. This is Maya. And to see through Shastra means something completely different. That I'm not the center, but Krishna is the center. And if I act for his pleasure instead of my pleasure, if I am that surrendered, I am safe, even though in the material world, like the cat carrying not the mouse, but the kitten. Absorption in Shastra. Because Shastra teaches us about Krishna. So absorption in Shastra means absorption in Krishna. And when Krishna tried to give this kind of knowledge to the gopis, they said, no. It is not for someone with prem. They didn't say that, but that was the conclusion. And today, the sages continue. We have seen your feet, the source of the holy Ganga, which washes away volumes of sins. There's an instruction in there. How powerful the Ganga is. They've previously said if you just go to the holy place to bathe in the river, you are not very qualified, like an animal isn't qualified. But here they're saying that the Ganga removes sins. And our acharyas say that verse about the only purpose of going to a holy place is to associate with devotees, really, with exalted devotees. Our acharyas say that this doesn't mean the place where the Yamuna is and the place where the Ganga is. These are major rivers of purification. The others are minor. And here their words are going to end to Krishna. Perfected yogis can at best meditate upon your feet within their hearts. And we're seeing those feet with our eyes, but only those who render you wholehearted devotional service. And in this way, destroy the soul's coverings, the material mind. Only they attain you as their final destination. Attain you. Others may, Paramatma, yogis, or others may even go to Brahman. And therefore, and this is very important as we shall hear later, therefore their request upon seeing Krishna is kindly show us mercy because we are your devotees. Atan anugrahaya bhaktan. We are your devotees. We need mercy. They are sages already and they're asking for mercy. Someone may respond, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, that may be true, that we need mercy, but to destroy the subtle body, which is the basis of the gross body, which is, subtle body includes this ahankara, buddhi, and intelligence and mind. But to destroy this subtle body, jnana is necessary. This is what someone may say, Vishwanath says. And to this we reply, those whose subtle bodies containing desires, those who have subtle bodies that have material desires, that subtle body is destroyed by intense devotion. And they alone attain the goal through intense devotion and no one else. Tivrena bhakti yogeni ejeta purusha para. And the example of that from the second canto is Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj, he had such a huge desire to have a kingdom greater than the universe, his grandfather. And because his desire was not an obstacle, because his desire was so intense, focused, Tivrena means powerful, like the Ganga at Gomukh. It's so powerful, it moves big boulders, big icebergs. Because of that intensity of desire, those people dissolve their material subtle body because of their intense desire and bhakti. Tatralo yamapi mula mekalam. And why don't I get the result? Why does my material mind and false ego give me so much trouble? No intense desire. And therefore they conclude, please give us your mercy. Now this will come out at the end. Now let's just, if we could play the video for this part.
On the sacred occasion of a solar eclipse at Kurukshetra, the Yadavas, the Pandavas, and many other royal dynasties assembled seeking to earn pious merit, as the kings and queens spoke among them.
This video at some point, this specific video, will make you laugh. Now see if you can be sages who are so sober that you don't laugh. Let's see if you can do it, oh great sages. Go.
Themselves, a host of great sages entered the royal camp, all eager for the audience of Lord Krishna and Lord Balarama. Among them were illustrious souls, such as Narada, Vyasa, and Parashurama, along with many other self-realized sages and their disciples.
you couldn't do it.
As the sages approached, the kings and noblemen who had been seated immediately rose to their feet, including the Pandava brothers. And Lord Krishna and Lord Balarama themselves. With folded hands, they all bowed low before the sages, who are revered throughout the universe. Lord Krishna, Lord Balarama, and the assembled kings and leaders then welcomed them with honor. Seated, Lord Krishna, who descended for the protection of religion, began to address them on behalf of all the kings. When Krishna began to speak, all became silent, being eager to hear and understand his welcoming words to the sages.
All glories to all the assembled sages and ascetics. Today we all feel that our lives have become successful. Today we have achieved the desired goal of life because we now see face to face all the exalted, liberated beings whom even the great demigods in the heavens desire to see. Persons who are neophytes in devotional service and who simply offer their respectful obeisances to the deity in the temple but cannot realize that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. And those who simply worship different demigods for fulfillment of their own lusty desires are unable to understand the importance of these sages. They cannot take advantage of receiving these sages by seeing them with their eyes, by touching their lotus feet, by inquiring about their welfare, or by diligently worshipping them. One cannot purify himself merely by travelling to holy places of pilgrimage and taking a bath there, or by seeing the demigods formed in the temples. But if one happens to meet a great devotee, who is a representative of the personality of Godhead, one is immediately purified. To become purified, one is enjoined to worship the fire, the sun, the moon, the earth, the water, the air, the sky, and the mind. By worshipping all the elements and their predominating deities, one can gradually become free from the influence of envy. But all the sins of an envious person can be nullified immediately, simply by serving a great soul. My dear revered sages and respectable kings, you can take it from me that a person who accepts this material body made of three elements, mucus, bile and air, as his own self, who considers his family and relatives his own, who accepts material things as worshipable, or who visits holy places of pilgrimage just to take a bath there, but never associates with great personalities and sages. Such a person, even though in the form of a human being, is nothing but an animal like an ass.
Hearing such unfathomable words from the unlimitedly wise Lord Krishna, the learned Brahmanas remained silent, their minds bewildered.
Your power of illusion has totally bewildered us, the most exalted knowers of the truth and leaders among the universal creators. Ah, how amazing is the behavior of the Supreme Lord. He covers himself with his human-like activities and pretends to be subject to superior control. Indeed, the human-like pastimes of the Almighty are simply a pretense. Effortlessly, he alone sends forth from his self this variegated creation, maintains it, and then swallows it up again, all without becoming entangled. just as the element earth takes on many names and forms in its various transformations. Nonetheless, at suitable times, you assume the pure mode of goodness to protect your devotees and punish the wicked. Thus, you, the soul of the Varna Ashrama social order, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, maintain the eternal path of the Vedas by enjoying your pleasure pastimes.
The Vedas are your spotless heart, and through them one can perceive, by means of austerity, study and self-control, the manifest, the unmanifest, and the pure existence transcendental to both.
Therefore, O Supreme Brahman, you honor the members of the Brahminical community, for they are the perfect agents by which one can realize you through the evidence of the Vedas. For that very reason, you are the foremost worshipper of the Brahmanas.
Today, our birth, education, austerity, and vision have all become perfect because we have been able to associate with you, the goal of all saintly persons. Indeed, you, yourself, are the ultimate supreme blessing.
Let us offer obeisances unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, the infinitely intelligent Supersoul, who has disguised his greatness through his mystic Yoga Maya.
Today, we have directly seen your feet, the source of the holy Ganges, which washes away volumes of sins. Perfected yogis can at best meditate upon your feet within their hearts, but only those who render you wholehearted devotional service and, in this way, vanquish the soul's covering, the material mind, attain you as their final destination. Therefore, kindly show mercy to us, your devotees.
The sages then took leave of Lord Krishna and the kings and prepared to depart for their ashramas.
But before they could depart, Vasudeva decided, Krishna's father decided he would take advantage of the sage's presence. And before they could actually leave, he went right before them, he touched their feet, and he asked them a question. The question he asked, and the sages knew him as Krishna's father, the question he asked was, how can one remove the reactions of his work? How can one remove the reactions of his work by another work? What can I do to remove these reactions to the things I've done in my life that will cause me difficulty, my karma? Again, when the sages heard this question, they were bewildered. He's Krishna's father, and he saw Krishna in his four-armed form while in the prison of Kamsa. He knows Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in Krishna's presence, he's asking us. He thinks Krishna is a mere boy. Why doesn't he ask Krishna? He knows he's the Supreme Lord. They thought. He's asking us because familiarity breeds contempt. And then Narada speaks on behalf of the sages. They were bewildered for a short time. And Narada knows that this is Leela and Vasudeva's position. But he's speaking to the general sages even. And he says, In this world, familiarity breeds contempt. For example, one who lives on the bank of the Ganga might travel to some other body of water for the purpose of getting purified. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that living close to Krishna, even though he knew Krishna was as the two-armed form of four-armed form Vishnu, familiarity has bred contempt. But actually, Narada saying this, he knew that the cause of Vasudev's not seeing Krishna as God was actually his prema, his love, because he was that quality of a devotee. But at that great gathering, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he explained things according to the level of the common man, and he does not describe the highest, the confidential truth of prema bhakti. So then Narada describes the actual position of the Lord Krishna, that he's not affected by time, he's not ordinary, he knows everything, he's not affected by the creation or destruction of the world, whether it's self-caused or external, he's never affected by material distress, by any karma or anything like that. But ordinary persons, and this, we've just seen Krishna deal with his queens. We've heard about his dealings with the gopis, with the Yashoda, all the brothers' dealings. But ordinary people will hear these pastimes and they will think that he is covered by his own creation of prana and the other material elements, that he has a material body. This is completely destroying the theory of Mayavad. Yes, they're ordinary people. They're not sages. They're offenders, actually. They think he is covered by his own creation. But Narada is thinking that actually Vasudeva knows. But out of his affection for Krishna, he forgets. Then they began to speak more, and even Krishna was listening to what they said. They began to answer his question as if he didn't know, or he was covered. And they thought perhaps he's just setting a good example for a common man, as Krishna set the example for a common man. At least the ones who were more qualified thought in that way. So he says, the sages say, it has been definitely concluded that work is counteracted, the results of work, karma, is counteracted by further work. What kind? When one conducts Vedic sacrifices, they've studied the Vedas, and especially by the Vedas, by the sacrifice, they worship Lord Vishnu, who is the Lord of sacrifice, but they worship him and perform the sacrifice because they have sincere faith. They have full faith. And therefore, the result that they will get is their karma is completely removed. So it's not exactly the specific sacrifice that they perform. If performed without, it's not that removes all karma. It's not doing the sacrifice, putting the ghee on the fire and reciting mantras. It's that there has to be an understanding that this is a sacrifice to the Supreme Lord, Vishnu. And that faith has to be there. And sometimes I wonder that why, after doing so many years of this life of I've been chanting, I've been trying to serve, that's all a sacrifice. If it's a sacrifice means that you're giving up something for the pleasure of another. So that point, the chastarupa, the activities are important. But without the bhavarupa, without the consciousness that I'm doing this to please another, and that other is Krishna or Krishna's representatives, or the deity in that form, but it should be, to get the result, it has to be done as a sacrifice, a devotional sacrifice. May you be pleased by what I'm doing here. I'm doing it for you, and then the result comes by. And one has to have faith in that. So the problem is an interior problem. And when one is a younger devotee, there's always such a tendency to, the reason is always, the problem is external. And if I just change something external, it's this person, this circumstance, I'll move here, I'll change this, I'll do that. But when older, starts to understand the problem is not external at all, but it is internal. It's my limited consciousness, limited understanding, limited devotion. And that is what has to be changed if one wants the result. It's a very, very difficult point to confront, I find. And therefore, the sages ultimately said, please give us mercy, because I don't think I'm capable of changing countless births of my conditioning. I can't do it, but I want to do it. Please give me mercy, and I'm going to do my part of trying my best. We should chant like a baby crying for mother. Could you pinch again, one more time? Sorry. No. Come in. I don't. It's okay. Very, very actually peaceful little. It's a he or a she, or she is very sweet. And Prabhupada said that the fruit of the tree doesn't fall far from the tree. It's a very heavy point in here. So then the sages continue giving general advice that's going to gradually come to specific advice. They say that the authorities, seeing through Shastra, they say that the easiest way of subduing the agitated mind, and therefore attaining liberation, because they're those kind of sages, is that perform your sacred duty, which brings, the eyes of Scripture have demonstrated that this worship of Vishnu, performing sacrifice for Vishnu, is the sacred duty that brings joy to the heart. But Jiva Goswami says something that really points to the point of the Bhava-rupa. He says, all sacrifices become successful, since success is achieved simply by a sankalpa, a determined vow, a determined focus of consciousness. Before I perform the activity of the sacrifice, I have it in my mind that this is dedicated to the Lord. This is the comment of Srila Jiva Goswami. So bringing that to the point of our attempts at devotional service is that same type of determination consciously should be made before and as we're making our offerings. That this is done this is dedicated to you, my Lord, This is the most auspicious path for religious householders of the twice-born order, to selflessly worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with wealth honestly attained. An intelligent person, they continue, should learn to renounce his desire for wealth by performing sacrifices and acts of charity. He should learn to renounce his desire for wife and children by experiencing householder life. And he should learn to renounce his desire for promotion to higher planets in his next life. O saintly Vasudeva, by studying the effects of time, one should learn these things. One should learn not only by hearing, if one is capable to learn by hearing, that's first class, but if one can't learn by hearing, experience with hearing Shastra and then learn in that way. This is the auspicious means for householders of the twice-born order to selflessly worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with wealth attained. Sanatana Goswami says something that I thought was funny. He says, wealthy persons who are not detached should first offer their wealth in sacrifice. Thus, the auspicious path this is the auspicious path without obstacles for them. He just basically repeats, but it's the next one. That is one cannot destroy karma without giving up all material desires. One can give up all desires by the following process. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one should give up the desire for wealth by sacrifice and charity, which are the results of the wealth. He then thinks, this is the part that I thought was funny, what is the use of wealth if I just get it spent on sacrifices and charity? I thought that's funny. I'm working so hard to get all this money, and I can't even enjoy it. I'm giving it all away for sacrifice and charity. Isn't it funny? And once you give up, and therefore he doesn't want to bother working in that way anymore, unless he's a devotee. Prabhupada, he said, and I've actually seen this photo. I saw it in Prabhupada's place of Govardhana on Mahatma Gandhi Road when I first went there. There was a photo of someone offering Ramakrishna money, and he's going. And Prabhupada had said, as we had heard, that you can take a picture of me, someone is offering money, and I'll go like this. Give more. Because without money and people, he knew that he couldn't change the world. It was the engine driving his movement. Of course, devotion was the engine, but used in Krishna's service. And then he explains, and because it's 9 already, he explains that that Vasudeva, the sages explain, you're already free from 2 of the 3 debts. You have studied, Vasudeva was very learned, you have studied the Shastras, that's the way to please the sages, by studying the Shastras. To please the forefathers, you should have children, you have a family already. And then what you have neglected so far is to please the demigods by performing a sacrifice. And then, very quickly, they recognize Vasudeva's actual position, that you're so pious, you don't need any of this. Because we know that, because you're the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this talking is for something else. This is to set an example for others. And then Vasudeva says, yes, I will perform a sacrifice for the pleasure of Vishnu. And he begs them to become his priest in the sacrifice. And we'll just read the comment. And they agree that they will perform the sacrifice. So before, Srila Sanatana Goswami says, before they had heard them say, we want your blessings, we want mercy for bhakti. And this is Sanatana Goswami's comment. Vasudeva had heard them say that to Krishna. And here's Sanatana Goswami's comment. Hearing their words, he made the sages his priests, for their words indicated his good fortune because of Krishna's being his son. And Vasudeva thought, these sages requested bhakti, which can be attained from a person like me. On the pretext, using the excuse of performing a sacrifice, I will have them attain Krishna's mercy. That was what Vasudeva was thinking. Thus Vasudeva bowed with his head touching the earth, and he praised them with verses. So Vasudeva acted in such a way because he was a devotee, so that they would get mercy. So there's a little more in this class, but we can cover that tomorrow, but basically we can even cover it in the video that I don't want to take the time now, but first thing tomorrow, Krishna willing, we will show the video of the sacrifice. Even though it's artificial intelligence, Vasudeva acted with real intelligence, real mercy, by the mercy of Krishna. Okay, I think prasadam is open now, but if you want to discuss what you heard for 10 minutes, just turn to one or two people around you and discuss. If not, please go and take prasadam. What a choice. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Gaunataya ki jai, Sri Krishna Balarama ki jai, Sri Radha Govinda ki jai, Radha Shyama ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hare Hare Ram. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Just wait a second. Yes. Wait. Say again?
Prabhu is going to book the follow-up appointment for Mara,
Yes.
next Thursday or Friday. Will you be available? Do you want to join?
Well, see, I haven't, after this is over, I have to look at my calendar because I have so many things going on. And I haven't been able to look at it.
It will be a short one.
I'm sure it will be a short one. I just want to make sure that I'm not having a Alone with Krishna retreat or something like that. But probably okay, and good that you're telling me in advance. But the day when do you leave?
I'm leaving you mean to Hong Kong?
Yeah.
I'm leaving on Wednesday from here to Vrindavana and then
What day is that? That's the 27th? 26th. Okay, but anyway, we can do this by... Yeah. No, but I'm saying you can ask me again to be there after you leave.
Okay, but anyway, he will book the time first.
He'll do it, so that's a good thing.
He will do it on Thursday or Friday.
Yes.
Okay. So
Who is he booking it with exactly? No, but who's with what doctor?
Psychiatrist in Mumbai.
Sarve.
I think so.
Yeah, that's his name.
Because since discharge,
Yeah. So Radhatran asked him and he agreed, in other words.
Yes, he agreed. I talked to Maharaj, he agreed.
Yeah.
He agreed this week. That's why I'm pushing a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to make sure